But first, let's focus on Britain's latest world champion.
Right hand from Frampton gets through once again. Still, Martinez is throwing back, finishing as he started, but so too is Frampton on top with the better punching, the cleaner punching, and this has been a brilliant performance by Carl Frampton. And there goes the bell. Frampton raises both arms. He's lifted aloft by Shane McGuigan. It's another special night in Belfast. Hugs all around ringside because they know that Carl Frampton has realised the dream by winning the ultimate prize, the world title. What a performance and what a night.
Well, Carl Frampton joins us in the studio. I've got tingles going down my spine just listening to that, Carl. How does it feel listening to it?
It feels great. Honestly, it was, apart from my baby being born, and I'll have to say yes, getting married as well. That was the best night of my life. But oh, great night.
I mean, the atmosphere was just unbelievable. The noise was incredible. Could you hear yourself think?
It was noisy. I was a wee bit worried that the noise was going to get lost in the sky somewhere, because obviously we were outside. But it really was noisy. There was 16,000 there. Sounded like double that, but. Yeah, what a night, what a night.
Listen, it wasn't that exciting. His 3-year-old daughter slept through most of it.
That's kids for you. They'll always keep you grounded. But I'm just imagining that probably the rest of Belfast has been doing the opposite, that they've been building you up. Have you been able to walk down the street? Yeah,
it's been, a lot of people recognise me now more and more, but I don't mind that. I'm a people person. I like to stop and have a chat with people. And I suppose it's better than them not talking to me, so very friendly, everyone.
I think it's the only place in the world where 13, 14, 15 and 16-year-old youth boxers are recognised on the street, or recognised on the streets. And trying to go anywhere with Carl, I bumped into him the day after the fight, the morning after the fight. It's interesting the way they approach you, Carl. They don't jump all over you. It's almost like they queue up in an orderly queue for their 5 seconds in your company. I mean it. There's no arms around necks and stuff. They just queue, then the next one, then the next one, then the next one. It's great to watch.
You've got an aura then, by the sound of it, from what Steve says. Is that what it is? I mean, respect, I suppose, is what it is.
Yeah, I think it's respect. It's our biggest sport. We've always produced good fighters, and people in Belfast in particular, they know a good fighter when they see one. So I think they're getting behind me. They want to follow the whole journey. There's people who come to my fights who used to go to Barry's fights. They're coming to my fights now, and they're bringing their sons and their grandsons and their great grandsons. But no, it's like a real journey, and they want to join the raid. Really, that's kind of how I describe it.
Do you feel that you want to stay in Belfast, Carl, or are you ready to break out as well, like Barry did all those years ago?
I would obviously love to fight in America. That's going to be a dream. And people talk about Vegas and stuff. I would love to fight in Vegas, but I'd probably prefer to fight on the East Coast, Madison Square Gardens or Atlantic City, somewhere like that. But I want most of my big fights to be in Belfast as well. I'd like to go and hit the States once or twice, and maybe come to London, maybe Dublin. But most of them I want to be at home. You mentioned Barry, of course. Obviously, is big man in your corner. Are you a history fan? I mean, we're not saying that Barry's history, of course, because he'll be furious with us to hear that.
Easier.
But do you get? I mean, you mentioned as well you want to fight at Madison Square Garden. Is it something that you think about? Do you watch old fights? Are you aware of the history of the fight game? Yeah, I'm aware a little bit. To be honest, my boxing knowledge probably isn't up to scratch. As most people think I know more about old timers than I actually do. I probably should know a bit more, but I watch certain fighters. I love guys like Duran, that sort of style. I love aggressive, come-forward fighters. But I watch a little bit, but I wouldn't say I'm a boxing historian like this man beside me.
It's interesting with the Barry thing, because in all fairness, you don't need to be anything other than born anywhere in Northern Ireland to understand what Barry McGuigan did and the influence he has. And when Carl and Barry are on the streets in Belfast, it's the best reaction I've ever seen in any sport, in any city, to any athlete. And it's not a clamour. It's not the thing you get with Floyd Mayweather, people pushing each other. Not even with Ricky putting their arms around him, trying to buy him a pint. It's this respect thing, this aura thing. And it's a little bit... It's a little bit like you have to have a little bit of a choke up when you see it. And I mean that. It sounds bizarre, but it is.
I was going to say, because there was a headline on the front page of the Belfast Telegraph on the day of the fight, and it said that a victory for Carl Frampton will be a victory for the country that we all want to live in. And I thought,
not much pressure there, Carl.
No,
that's big. That's big. I mean, do you sometimes think, like, I just want to be a boxer? That's what I do.
I don't know, to be honest. Look, I'm very humbled that I get all the attention, and there's not many other fighters anywhere in the UK that are getting on the front page of the papers, and getting front and back. The media, especially back home, they really support me. Get a lot of coverage on local television as well. But I enjoy that as well. I really enjoy that. Not that I'm big headed and I like to be flash or anything like that, but I don't mind a bit of attention. You know, it's nice.
I mean, because we've talked about the fact that you're a big deal. You're the biggest of big deals in Belfast at the moment. But the reason you're here up here at Media City is that you're recording a question of sport, and clearly we can't say anything about what's happened, because that will have to wait till it airs. But how important is broad-based British recognition and then global recognition to you? It
is important. It is important. The main thing though is the titles. That's the main thing. The rest of it is secondary. But when I was a kid, I had a dream of becoming a world champion. I didn't have a dream of becoming a well-known person. But it is important, obviously, to widen the fan base and to take different routes and come out of your home city, and just try and expand a bit. Boxing's the biggest in America. It's the biggest. It's huge in the States. That's what you want to do. You want to be there one day, but again, I'm still quite happy to be fighting at home and being on the front page of the Belfast Telegraph.
You are officially deemed a tourist attraction. Is that correct? You're not a fighter. You're actually a tourist attraction.
Well, I don't know about that.
No. That's what I think. That's what the government had said. That you're a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
Fighter second, tourist attraction first. Hey, it's an odd. I've never heard of it either, but that's what I'm reliably told.
There wasn't an empty room in a hotel in Belfast. The pubs were full. People were coming from everywhere. Honestly, there were obviously a lot of locals there, but there was people from all over the place went to see that fight. So you can say that if you want.
But you're saying, Carl, that underpinning all that you do and the respect and recognition you get are the fights. And the one we've been talking tonight about, great rivalries in British boxing through the divisions, and the great fight out there in the super bantamweight division is you against Scott Quigg. Right now, today, where are we on that?
I think there has been negotiations. I have to fight my mandatory challenger, who's Chris Avalos. I have to fight him. Me against Scott Quigg is a stadium fight, I think. Obviously, you can't box outdoors in sort of February, when the next time, that's when I'll be boxing again, once the hands and stuff heal. So that fight, I would like that to happen in the summer, but Avalos is probably going to be my next opponent, and he's who I'll be focusing on if we get the nod and that's the fight that goes ahead. But Quigg, of course, it's a fight that I would love, but I don't need that fight. He needs it more than me, but it would be a big shame if it didn't happen.
And boxing fans who followed you beating Martinez will remember that you injured a hand in that fight. What's the prognosis?
Well, it was two hands actually. The left knuckle here and my wrist, an old injury around my right wrist. Both were sore, but I seen a specialist 3 days ago, and he's very, very happy with how they're coming along. There's absolutely no rush though. He's told me to take at least 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks without punching. But I'm running, I'm taking over, I'm keeping fit, trying to keep the belly off, and I'm on the mend.
What's your biggest indulgence when you're not actually preparing for a fight?
It's pretty big news for some reason back home, but everyone kind of knows now that I love a pavlova after a fight, and there's like, where I buy my pavlovas, there's people coming up to the shop and asking for the Carl Frampton pavlova. And it's a special pavlova, you have to have crunchy in it.
Crunchy in a pavlova?
Yeah, like inside it and on top.
Lord.
It's very nice, but...
passion fruit, raspberry,
No
crunchy.
fruit, just crunchy and flake, and maybe a bit of like butterscotch sauce or something.
So just pure sugar?
Yeah.
No vitamins at all?
Not really, but I probably done 6 pavlovas after that fight, so... I might have to change it. I'm a wee bit sick of them now.
There's some good lightweights out there.
Yeah, I know. But if I can make lightweight.
I tell you what,
Celebrity Bake Off here.
I was going to say, it's the Great British Bake Off for you next, Carl, by the sound of it.
I don't mind cooking. I've never baked anything in my life. I like to eat the cakes. I don't like to make them. But
Pavlova's dead easy.
Really?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'll trust you.
Egg whites, sugar.
Yeah.
Whisk them up in the oven.
You can get it.
Sorted.
You can get it wrong a little bit.
Turn it down. Yeah, keep it low. Keep it low. Keep it low. I cannot believe I'm just giving cooking tips to a world champion.
Well, I'll take all the cooking tips I can get. I love cooking, but sometimes I get it wrong. Sometimes I get it right.
I've never made with crunchy though.
Try it. It's nice.
And that was world champion Carl Frampton speaking to us just before we came on air. He was just in a lovely mood, wasn't he? Very relaxed. It was great to meet him because we talked a lot, of course, about him in the build-up to that fight, and the fight was just so amazing on air as well in Belfast that fantastic night. And, of course, now everybody is hungry for more Carl Frampton action, Mike, aren't they? And could politics stop Frampton Quigg from happening?
I think there is a danger. He seemed to be really keen there, but he made a point that Scott Quigg needs the fight more than him. And because of all the reasons we've just been explaining, I think that is actually the case. He is such a huge draw in Belfast that Scott Quigg against Carl Frampton over there is much more than just another opponent, but he will draw huge crowds and huge coverage and huge acclaim whoever he fights. This fight against the mandatory challenger he mentioned, Chris Avalos, will be a huge event in Belfast because it involves Carl Frampton. He's at that stage now where his name on that side of the bill in Belfast is colossal, whoever's on the right-hand side.
He's talking about coming back whenever it is, February or so, Mike. I'm not quite sure the Odyssey, which is the indoor arena, the big arena there, is big enough, 8,000 or 9,000, after what we saw. I wouldn't be at all surprised. He was quite keen to mention the East Coast. I'll throw in Boston as well there, or Philadelphia. All of the places he mentioned, Atlantic City, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, massive Irish following. I mean, he'd do his 16, 15, 17,000, and there are several arenas in those four great cities, great fight cities, that could accommodate him. Chris Avalos brings nothing to the table apart from the fact that he's got a very high ranking. I mean, his fans generally do arrive in the proverbial taxi, so it's absolutely irrelevant. But the fact is, he's American, he talks well, he looks well, and his record looked perfectly okay. If he went against Frampton, any one of those four cities, in March, when we're not bothered about being outdoors, it would be enormous for him. Then you come back, in my opinion, for something here. The politics is the big problem. They've both been fighting on rival channels, one on Box Nation and one on Sky, and neither Box Nation or Sky are keen to not have those guys carry on fighting on their channels. They're negotiating constantly and doing better and better deals. Scott Quigg against Carl Frampton would be, if it didn't happen, I would put it at the top of my British fights to not happen during 30-odd years in the business. Correct, Mike?
Yeah.
Can you think of another British fight that was more... that should have happened, that was more urgent need for it to happen, with both fighters having fewer options, fewer places to go?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that would be a huge fight outdoors in Belfast. And Barry McGuigan was talking in the build-up to Frampton's win against Martinez about a site very close to where that fight was, and that was pretty much on waste ground by the Docklands there, and they built this temporary arena. And Barry McGuigan was talking in his terms. He said just across the road they had the potential to build a temporary arena again of 35,000, and even that would sell out almost instantly, because if, as you were saying, Steve, he would go over to any one of those cities on the east coast of the United States, imagine then how the desire to see him builds and builds and grows in Belfast. By then, by the summer of next year, they won't have seen him for the best part of the year, and it becomes an even bigger event.
So why go 7,000 or 7,500 at the Odyssey, which would sell out in about 3.5 minutes? And you can't start charging the people that have been loyal to you from the sports centres, the Macefield Sports Centre, to the King's Hall, to the Ulster Hall. You've gone through different sized arenas. You can't start charging them the type of thing that Floyd Mayweather does, which is, the cheapest ticket, $500. That's why he can generate 19 million on a gate. He can't do that. He won't do it. And the people, as much as they love him, they won't stand for it. Trust me.
Let me name one more name. Kid Galahad.
Ah, the kid. I love the kid. He got an award, you know, the other night at the Boxing Writers Do at the Savoy, and he stood up and all of the training at Brendan Ingle's gym where he makes them sing and do ballroom dancing, and he's just the most natural kid. He didn't say an awful lot. He didn't have to. He just thanked people in a great accent, a sort of mix of speaking some Yemeni at home because I think his mother's Yemenis, and speaking broad Yorkshire, which is what he does, and a little bit of Dublin thrown in there from the Whispering Guru Ingle, and he gave a thank you, and it warmed the cockles of your heart. Plus, I'd tell you something, the kid can properly fight. He may be Kid Galahad, real name Barry Anwar. I'm going with Kid Galahad every time, but he can fight. He's about 2 fights and 8 or 9 months away from going in with either of those two, maybe a year away.
Barry renamed Kid Galahad, as Brendan Ingle loves to do with some of his fighters. Do you remember Slugger O'Toole?
Slugger O'Toole. But how about Fidel Castro Smith? That was his real name.
And they both appeared in one world governing body's rankings at the same time. Yeah. Slugger O'Toole and Fidel Castro Smith in the same rankings, and they're the same person.
Paddy O'Reilly, as he named a big West Indian bouncer from Derby called Clifton Mitchell. He renamed him Paddy O'Reilly. And Big Clifton's still got a soft spot for that Paddy O'Reilly tag. I assure you. Hi, it's Paddy here.